Good evening, everyone. Tonight is the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. It's June 3rd, 2025. In attendance are Dr. Lehman, Mr. Moraldo, Kate Ratner, Ms. Ratner, Ms. Alvarez, Ms. Fabian, and our wonderful members of the committee. Tonight, we're going to do community connections and future opportunities, plus a program and facilities tour. We're going to take a little walk around and show everybody what great things we have here at the high school. And then we're going to review the summer schedule and preview SY 25-26. Mr. Moraldo, if you would like to.
Sure. So one of the original goals of this committee was to bring in members with diverse backgrounds and experiences as a means to help drive some of our existing and some of our more innovative programs. One of the things that we had identified as the strength of the district was, God bless you, was one of the, was basically the unique construct of our community, with people, like I said, from different, not just cultures and demographics, but professional backgrounds. And this has also lined up with the revitalization of our high school work-based learning program and some of the other community-based programs, which is actively seeking ways to connect our school district with individuals and organizations in the community. So when trying to figure out a nice way to take that a step further, we figured it would be a nice opportunity, especially as we're winding down the school year, to familiarize the committee and with some of the things that we do here, with hopes that we can use this new knowledge and additional context to our courses and programs here, to maybe go out and find some additional partners, or maybe go back to the people you associate with in the community that may be retired or working or looking for ways to connect the school district, or maybe even offer some professional opportunities for current students seeking internships, or even if we just want to have an opportunity for someone to come in and speak. Next Monday, to give you an example, we have a principal engineer surveying division coming down to speak with our computer-aided design and civil engineering course. And one of the reasons we can do these types of things, it's one thing when you have a guest speaker come in, they say, hey, you know, I do this, that, and that's great, right? But when they can come in and get on the technology and leverage some of the tools and equipment within a practical learning environment, that just enhances that type of learning experience even more so. So Dr. Lehman and I would like to share that with you guys tonight, and we'll start with talk about a little bit of the infrastructure of the building and how it supports that. And then we'll show you some of the facilities. And as we're doing that, I'll describe a little bit about the programs that take place and what we're hoping to do with them, and how we think that a partnership with the community might allow us to improve.
So just while we're talking about this, one thing that I've been asked by people, both in our community and by board members from other school districts, is because they've heard of the partnerships that we've had. And I know you sort of make it tailored to the person who's reaching out, but I know a lot of times people are resistant to make that initial contact and would love to, I guess, see information, whether it's on the website or something that they can look at as ways that they can partner with the school district. Is that something that we have available on the website?
Yeah.
So we don't.
I thought it was.
Yeah, so we do have like a very generic way for community to reach out and kind of kickstart a relationship.
The email, but like.
Yeah, but like, I think I know what you're asking for. Yeah, there's really no like a la carte menu of partnerships. As far as like entering into structured agreements with organizations. That you know, I think that's good feedback though, to offer something like that, because I do use form letters and things like that. But for tonight's purpose, what I'm hoping to do, what we're hoping to do, is really talk about really bolstering our existing programs through community support, and also maybe give us an opportunity to brainstorm some new ideas about how we can expand some of the opportunities within this committee by leveraging the community. The individual that's coming in next week, you know, that's not part of any structured agreement. That's just, we were able to successfully forge a relationship with someone that was willing to donate their time to come speak to our students that are future engineers. So it doesn't always have to be as formal
Right.
as, hey, you are official partner of the district. Now you can come in and speak to the kids. If you have an interesting message and it lines up with what our curricular is asking us to do, our curriculum is asking us to do, our lesson plans asking for, we will entertain that. We have guest speakers coming all the time.
But isn't there a spot where people can make donations on our website? Correct? Why, I thought you had said that one, no?
The focus is really funneling anyone that's interested in collaborating with us
Okay.
to the community outreach.
Mhm.
Then based on a conversation with whoever's looking to outreach, we would support whether it's a one-time donation of a piece of
Right.
technology to a specific schools for a specific reason, or if it's a professional that says, hey, I have this career experience. Can I be a benefit to the district or anything like that? We all funnel it to the community email, which is really, that funnels to Zach's office.
Mhm.
And then, we make that connection from there. You know, to go back to an à la carte menu, like a platinum donor versus a, silver donor or something like that. I think maybe what would better represent our vision for a partnership or our vision for collaboration is we could probably put examples or, samples of our current partnerships, so that if somebody went to a landing page, they could see some of the things we have going on. But again, it's very specific to, who's interested in partnering versus, time, money, specific. Sometimes people say, I have office furniture that's never been used. Do you have
Yeah, like a piano or something.
yeah, or piano or, athletic equipment, all the way through finances and technology. So,
Like maybe like a form with like the examples and then a form to fill out.
Yeah, like
Instead
if
of
you're
having
willing
to
to.
create their own email. And Ms. Dean, I think you might, the Monroe Ed Foundation, which I think worked with you guys for that work-based learning
Mhm.
night, they have the
Yeah,
ability to
they're
do
on it.
donations on
I
their
was just gonna
website,
say,
so
if
that might
anyone in
work.
the community
It's
is
the
ever in doubt of how to
foundation.
help,
Yeah.
you could always go to the, like, especially if you just, hey, listen, I wanted to make it, I woke up feeling generous. I wanna help out the school district. You can't go wrong with supporting the Monroe Ed Foundation.
Mhm.
Because again, they work directly with the, Dr. Lane's office and directing, the beneficiaries to places where we can best use them. But yeah, no, I think that feedback, even if it's something more for someone that wants a donation, because normally what happens is they reach out to the business office and say, hey, I'd like to donate something, and then they throw it to us, and then we'll check in with the supervisor, see if it's viable, it's like that. But there's like those standard.
Yeah, I like the idea of just even putting something out there, just if you want to make, you came into some money and you want to give a $500 donation or a $100 donation, because that all adds up eventually. Or they can even say that they'd like to veer towards something like music or the arts or sciences. So,
And that's
something
where,
like that.
that's where the Ed Foundation's nice.
I know it is, but I mean, in addition to,
Yeah, oh, yeah, for
I
sure.
think we, do as much as we can.
I like to, when we take on particularly and entering financial agreements, I find that directing the fund and directly associating it with a program, that gives the partner peace of mind, because sometimes a $500 donation, I want to donate $500 to music. I said, what does that mean? Right? Whereas like, I want to donate $500 to support our onboarding of new fourth graders. Then we can have a little bit more of a, so sometimes that is more appealing than just saying, hey, I'd like to cut a $500 check.
Right.
But I could talk to Dr. Lehman and the business office about some sort of like standard process that would probably make streamline things, because we do get a lot of people offering to donate things. Usually it's material things. And we don't get as many people offering us cash as you think.
I mean, I know we don't use it here, but like Donors Choose is another
Yeah,
type of
that's another
platform where like in East Brunswick, we have a process that we do. We fill out the form, we submit it to our principal, who submits it to the superintendent's office, and then it gets approved, and then we post it. It has a cap of like, $500 or whatever. I don't know, maybe, I don't know if that's something that we would be able to.
Why don't we,
Why
why don't we do it
It
here?
it has to do with there's no process in place right now for us to vet
Yeah,
and or support what would potentially be acquired through that.
yep,
And I don't mean that like in a negative way. It really, for a while, it was, right when it came out, it was being utilized, and we'd end up with Amazon Kindles in classrooms. And our technology department is now getting asked to put non-district devices, right?
Yeah.
Because they came from
Yeah, we're not yet.
a donation and
Yeah,
things
we'll
like
have
that.
to, I think, I mean, if it was something that we would, that we wanted to look into, definitely like the process would have to be put in place, because
Right.
same thing was happening in East Brunswick, where we had stopped using it for a while because we were getting an influx of technology and, all of those kinds of things that were harder to support. So now we can't put in for furniture, we can't put in for technology, but we can put in for books or games or like materials and things like that, just enhance the classroom
Yeah.
experience.
I-
Any
and-
vetted towards vetted
Yeah,
curricular,
yeah,
Right.
if every classroom has a different IXL versus this versus that study tool or whatever, we have vetted, we have chosen the tools that we use with a purpose.
Yeah.
And they're all under the district umbrella, so, looking into something like that would involve a filtering
Yeah.
process, that these are not designed to, but they kind of circumvent the district purchasing process. Because it's a direct donation that ultimately, whether it's an Amazon wish list or, the donors choose and things like that. So it's something we can, look into
Yeah.
not today, but.
No, I think it needs to be looked into, because my daughter in New Brunswick, they do it in New Brunswick, she's been doing it for years. She did it, I think it was $500 or $600 years ago for the furniture for the children, like the balls, and then some of them sit on the floor and. Thank you, flex seating, and she had all that, and then when COVID hit, the district made her take everything out because they couldn't clean everything, was put away. She moved to a different school, now her friend is using it, but she really could use it in this other school. So she has put in at least 2 or 3 times in New Brunswick.
So our other piece is, we support the classroom environment, the instructional environment. If there's something a teacher needs, they can approach us, and very few times would we, if it's justified and needed, would we say no? So,
because if
It's-
that
it's-
wants, needs, and must
Well,
have.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's the difference between districts. I mean, you have all kinds of districts doing different things.
Dr. Lehman just said, but much more articulately what I was gonna say. I feel very confident that the district delivers for what the classroom teachers need. Now, of course, there could always be more. What I think, though, what we might be something worth exploring is that if, let's say, as a team, or as a committee, or as a district leadership team, whatever, we've identified a pointed need, let's just throw full-day kindergarten out there, right? Just pull it out of there. If we, I know everyone gets tired. If we were to say, I mean, that's the day, but something like, if we could construct, we need this much money to do this.
A Lego League at the elementary school.
Yeah, but we're maybe not even so much specific, I could probably figure that out in a couple months, if I could just, what I mean, how to do it. What if, if we could somehow drive support, the type of support that you might get in New Brunswick for a donor to choose, but just redirect that into a more eminent need.
Yeah.
What we've been trying to do is the traditional approach of state funding. If we could construct some way to circumvent that, because clearly there are very generous people in this town
Yes.
that would prefer, like, when we learned during the referendum, I've said it a couple times, they don't have a problem donating, they just don't like raising their taxes. And I think if maybe you find a way to work around that, work off that, and then you can find other ways to financially support the
I
district.
think it would be nice if we could do something like that, because I know for me, when you donate to different organizations, they say, for $10, you can get this, or $20, this will impact this. If you have that very visible,
Good idea.
yes,
Specific.
and very specific, this will get the school district that.
Founding
I feel like-
families of full-day kindergarten,
Exactly,
get a brick in the wall.
there you go.
I love it.
I like actually love that. I tell them from all that.
And you can't even accuse me of using ChatGPT.
Two things. First, there is actually legislation about donations possibly to school districts that then people would be able to write, right now, there are certain things already you can write off, but I don't think monetarily it's a write-off, whereas I don't remember the bill number, but that has been in the works. And then the other thing, Ms. Fabiano, you mentioned the policy for East Brunswick. I just tried to look.
It's not a policy,
Oh,
because I was just, I'm looking through the policies.
Yeah, that's what I was
So
looking,
it's not a
7230,
policy, But
but
we do, I'm gonna try and find like the guidelines that we.
Yes, I'll ask my daughter
because
from New
we
Brunswick.
have
too.
parameters in place as far as like what we're allowed to request, spend,
Really good
and go through like a whole process.
I'd be
of how we
curious
do it.
too, administratively, what type of protocols they follow for that.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to them.
Yeah, I
I'll
think
ask.
we definitely do the online donors choose portion, and then we submit it to our principal, and then after the principal signs off, it's almost kind of like when we would submit a grant to our education.
Right, yeah,
department.
yeah.
Like we fill out the grant, we submit it to the principal for approval, then the principal will send it off to the next supervisor for approval, and then once it gets that final approval, then we can post it to donors choose,
Right.
and also it partners with our education foundation, because they'll partner, like, once the project is funded so much, by like maybe, I don't, not even gonna say, I'm not sure.
Right.
They'll contribute like the last remaining.
Matching thing.
Right.
They'll contribute the last remaining amount.
So, suggest something.
Yes.
Speaking of, donations and trying to reach, people, I know this is public schools, I'm not sure if this will fly in, like, how it works. But, where I work, there's like a reunions, like, every year to gather all alumni. And they have, to generate funds out of that. They also reach out to alumni, like different from the reunions, that they're happening. Where they like, okay, online, this is what you'll be, getting some funding from donations, and then in this case, if the alumni would know where that funds will go to, let's say a new facility or a new whatever technology that we need, that would encourage them more. Because I'm sure a lot of people who graduated from this school are now successful in their field. They would probably like be generous enough to get more funding to share what they have accomplished.
So you're 100% on something.
Yeah.
And in fact, that was something that the high school, we've been talking about a lot. We've talked about it, I think, here a couple of times too. We don't have a alumni association.
Yeah, definitely.
So we've started, through athletics, we've put some stuff together, but that's one of the ideas of this work-based learning career connection event that we hosted a couple years ago, which was sponsored by the MEM. To really start, and actually, when we go in the hallway, I'll show you, because we still have the poster up. You can see that it's a blend of local business owners or leaders, but also a decent amount of alumni. So the idea would be that if we could start doing something like that annually, start to build our Rolodex.
Right.
And, again, our town is still fairly young. When you think existentially compared to our, I'm not talking about meeting.
Just keep going, honey. I said thank you. I said thank you.
No, but-
Say okay, right? Come on, Robin, that's right.
That's right,
Yes.
we're very young here. But when you think about, so like when, Mrs. Fabiano and I were in high school in Monroe, right? Wasn't that long ago. But so these classes that we have ascended, right? Through our system and through higher ed, and now they're into the careers. These kids are, the core of our district, the new Monroe, whatever you want to call it, they're just really settling into their careers. So we really think we haven't woke the sleeping giant of what our alumni could be. And, but we have to create a mechanism first and build on that. And to your point, ultimately, a foundation that is just really,
Even
yeah.
their point, like they're still young, right? They're still starting, like my daughter just, started with school,
Precisely.
working after graduating in college and so forth. But she's still giving like $1 to her, school from college, just so she's giving something.
See, that's a
It's
good
contributing.
idea.
So it doesn't matter if it's big or small, it's that, willingness to help out.
Mhm.
And knowing that there's, what you're giving, it will go towards something that you really know, that will help the kids, will be the new future, the new generation
Right.
of what they are. So that probably would help out.
It
So
is.
even if
And
it's-
create ownership.
Do we have an alumni listing that we keep in a database?
So we've been talking about this for 10 years. So we have a really hard time tracking kids after they leave.
Okay.
And even when you think about all right, so we have out in the hallway there, we have our college acceptance list. that'll change significantly by the spring semester, right? Transfer, whatever, kids.
I feel like they all still live in Monroe though, like we've talked about.
Yeah, but so there's no, so like, again, when they leave and then you push them out of Genesis, let's say, you know, we have our historical records, but, you know, we don't have any mechanisms of updating contact information. That has to happen somehow voluntarily. And other than social media and stuff like that, like, cause you know, there's alumni groups and
Yeah.
stuff. The district itself does not have a mechanism yet. They're trying really hard. I know the high school's got a couple ideas, guidance. We tried really hard, even just to track, you know, cause this came up years ago. How do you track ROI on a school district? Like, I know former students that I keep in touch with that are crushing it, but that's just my narrow existence in the district. You know, we had kids I had a student, I found out she was, you know, an executive VP for Microsoft. She's on the West Coast now, we'll probably never see her again. But like, that's part
It
of
doesn't
our,
matter though, she can
that's
donate.
part of
from the
our
West
ROI
Coast. We'll
that
take
is
it.
quantifiable.
Yes.
How do we access that?
So,
And I don't have the answer.
right,
yeah.
so we have that too. I'm
Mhm.
from a different department from where I work, but they're like, there's like a certain group of people who track down alumni.
Right.
Even like the joke around is like, even if the alumni move to a different state or city, they're still being tracked. It's like they're like, well, who's looking for us? So it's maybe somebody would be willing to do that, or like a part of their job to look around, like social, like I said, social media, and
Robin,
figure out where they are.
Robin, yes.
I have my 50-year reunion coming up at East Brunswick, in October. And, they're using a site that's very inexpensive, and our class president has always been responsible. And it's called reuniondb.com. I don't know what the DB is, but database, thank you. So it basically asks for people to connect if you know somebody, if you know, and you can enter. So my friend is not on social media, so I entered her name in the database. So that's something that our class president took on. And I had a graduating class of over 800. And we probably, except unfortunately, we've lost a lot of people, but we probably still have 600 alumni.
All on that database?
I would say there are over 400 right now in the database, and we're using it for our reunion. But as we're sitting here talking, I can see where, you know, maybe that could have other implications that might benefit. Because the first thing you have to do is by class. So I know from my experience with my children, you know, being well out of high school too, is the class presidents were responsible. So maybe
That's how it
if
is
you
here,
could figure out the class presidents and they could go on something like that and, you know, start collecting and getting word of mouth and having people put friends' names down that they can't locate and.
Posting that on social
It's a
media.
good idea.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's on, yeah, you know, they have a link to go to the DB, you know, the class reunion DB to sign up. It
So
was
it-
very easy.
Not to interrupt, when did you want to take how long is it gonna do?
I didn't wanna, derail the discussion.
No, I know, I don't either, but I just wanna make sure that we're on time, so I don't wanna,
Just,
it's 7:30.
Yeah, so let's take a walk. We can chat while we're walking too.
Yeah,
I just have one more comment too, something I lived in California for a couple of years when my kids were in school. And California is notoriously known, while many areas have great districts. They're known for not investing a lot of money per student. So what the elementary school did that my kids went to, we were there in 96, 97 through 2000. So every year we received a very lovely letter at the beginning of the year, the parents to donate that amount of money. So if it was year 2000, they asked for, you know, anything like 20, 200 or whatever dollars. They specifically had to use it for administration supplies in the office, like copy paper and things like that. But, you know, you can designate when it was 1996, we donated $96, 97, 98, you know.
it's really interesting.
So that's something too, but we would have to designate that money to something.
And I think the other thing is just keeping people engaged. Like I'm looking at our outgoing senior over here, and I remember like one of the things, like I grew up in Marlboro, we have our 25th anniversary reunion coming up.
You guys
for
are all
my-
dating yourselves.
One thing we did was we had
Here, so.
we had a Thanksgiving football game. It was an annual, it still happens, Marlboro versus Manalapan, and they would do like an alumni breakfast beforehand. And then we actually had an alumni band concert, the last band concert of the year, which like even last year I brought my daughter, my band director from high school was retiring, but all the music alumni came back and then we had a little thing afterwards. So just sort of finding ways to keep alumni engaged. I don't know if
And that's an opportunity to raise money.
association, right, an association has to be an outside organization, it can be kind of a.
I think it could be,
Collaboration.
I think it can be both, and I think it's a combination of the town, you know, when you think about towns like East Brunswick and even Marlboro and Oldbridge, they have such rich history and legacy, you know, decades and decades of, you know, Monroe, we don't have that yet, we're getting there. And I think our history is very recent, and I don't wanna say that you know, the other errors aren't as significant, but it's a different town and our needs are much different. And we haven't, really been able to sow the benefits of what the investment of the past quarter century has been. And maybe the takeaway from this is that maybe the time is right for us to make a concerted effort into establishing a formal alumni network and figure out ways to leverage it.
I think
Just
should.
another thing, Mr. Payne, I don't know if you were in town yet when they were doing this. So they used to, this is when my grandparents lived here, have a senior prom, where it was basically a prom for all of the senior citizens in town and the high school sort of ran it, so there were students there as well. And it kind of, I mean, it's different obviously than the alumni, you know, concept, but it brought all, which, you know, we have, I think, 40% senior citizens into the school to see what's happening here, to sort of talk with students and people within the school district. So we're talking about like community partnerships.
They do something, I think they just did it, the senior games, the high school.
Yeah.
Senior.
Yeah, did you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we went to the rec center essentially, and we had a bunch of us seniors from the high school go over there and meet senior citizens from different senior citizen communities.
Okay.
And it honestly was even better than I imagined. We versed them in pickleball, cornhole, a bunch of different games. I know it was raining that day, so a lot of them got moved to inside, so I think some were like bingo and trivia. But I essentially played pickleball with them, and it would be like one senior student and then one senior citizen paired up together, and we verse each other. And man, are they good at
Well,
pickleball.
Pickleball courts in Thompson Park on the weekend?
They
Oh, yeah.
In the community.
The community all have, them. Rossmore has a pickleball.
Yeah.
I just remember them putting their square dancing costumes on for the prom and all.
But to your point, that those events do tend to work.
Yeah.
When we
The
run.
contact
Yeah.
information from one of them too, saying like, oh, if you ever wanna come over with, you know, the other senior students that I played with, like, we have a court in our senior community, so
Don't
just
tell the
text me
HOA.
date and time. So it was really nice.
No, and the high school has done, I don't know when they stopped doing the senior prom, I vaguely remember it, but I know for, Dr. Higgins and his staff the last few years have been doing that. I think a couple years ago, they even toured, they went to a couple different locations, 'cause I remember I did a Facebook post about it. But but that kind of stuff seems to go over well, but maybe maybe there's opportunity there for, you know, our group to get in there, and maybe, you know, use it as an opportunity to build networks and stuff in addition, without distracting from what they're trying to do with the kids, obviously.
They're all good. All the ideas are excellent. I mean, it's just having to work through them, see which, and put them regarding, you know, priority and where we think we can all work together to get it done.
If there were a post or something about requesting alumni support to lead the committee and be on this committee, like an alumni committee, I think we would get a lot of.
Would you guys belong to an alumni committee when you leave?
Sorry,
Would you belong to an alumni committee?
when I belong to one.
Like an association?
Like here?
I honestly, we have kind of no information on that. Like I think mentioned before, the class president is someone who would take care of that, but I haven't heard of previous classes really have.
But no, I think what you're asking is like, if it were created.
Right, so like an alumni
That's what
association.
I meant. If it was created, would you participate? And if the class president doesn't want to do it,
Yeah.
you know, there's always class officers
Yeah.
that usually take over.
And some of them exist already organically, like, there's a group, like, I know, like, they're unofficial, like, I know that the robotics team has like a group of all the kids in college that like stay in touch with each other. And it's more of like social, but like, they, like, the alumni, like the 2009 football team that won the state championship, they get together every year. So maybe it's just a matter of curating it all into one umbrella.
I think it'd be a great
Once you
idea.
start the outreach, you'll, like, our graduating classes weren't even that big.
No, well,
I
that's,
think it would be-
isn't I see them half the time when I drive down the street anyways.
What about homecoming? Homecoming's another one.
Yeah.
Where the other district I was in, where they all came back, the alumni. And they had alumni football games against the, the present football players. They had alumni softball games with, my daughter played softball and she just played in an alumni softball game back in North Brunswick. So that's the kind of thing, homecoming, where, let's do this and start
Some of
there.
these things already do exist too. Like the
So
football started-
let's elaborate more on them and see where we can get involved. Yes, Bob?
I'm just curious overall, because it seems really foreign to me, to collect, except for my experience in California in the late nineties, to collect donations to fund school things, when did that start?
So just to focus we don't currently collect donations to fund existing opportunities. I think that's kind of what we were talking about.
Right.
Talking about donors' shoes.
Yeah.
We're providing an enriched, highly rigorous opportunities. What we've done with the summer enrichment programs, what we do in our partnerships, is we leverage those partnerships to grow and expand our programs. So if we have somebody partner with our cooking program.
Right.
It's typically a restaurant owner that reached out. We have this opportunity, and it's an expansion of what's going on in the day that's in the afternoon. During that, we can kind of try some new things, expand on the curriculum, and if they work, we can then spin those resources back into the school day. And we're gonna do that with our biomedical
The
piece.
culinary one's actually a great example, because culinary doesn't exist prior to seventh grade in our district. In fact, and because of the limitations of just being a public school, we often can't offer culinary recipes from the culinary dishes that might be featured in many of the homes of our students, meaning more culturally diverse dishes with dietary restrictions. We can't really get to that during the school day. But through the enrichment model, we can design unique programs that might be able to meet these emergent types of needs without having to rob Peter to pay Paul. We maintain the existing curriculum, the industrial arts and the STEM programs, another one. Many districts, what they've done, because you often can't expand new programming without contracting elsewhere in a zero-based budgeting philosophy, which is what most schools live in now. On top of that, you don't want to abandon one area for another, curricularly speaking. But on top of that, we have the inconvenient truth that things are getting more expensive. Particularly if you want to evolve programs. If I kept the industrial arts curriculum the same way from 1994, it probably wouldn't be that, it's probably more longer expensive, but it wouldn't be the cost that it is now. But in Monroe, we demand and we expect and we want to deliver emergent programs, but we don't do it at the expense of other ones. A lot of times, if we want to try something out, they're usually tech-driven, software-driven, or require a lot of materials that there's no way I'd be able to fit that into our budget within 2% cap, or even without contracting something else, which we obviously don't want to do. So what I'll do is I'll go out to find someone that shares goals and values with what we're trying to do, that believes in what we have already, and that has a vested interest in the community, we really helpful. And we'll say, hey, we're looking to develop this new program. Would you like to be part of it? And
they volunteer their time.
or
Or
they'll make a financial contribution to the development of a pilot or an expansion of an existing program. And then what we will do as a district is we will evaluate the viability of this new program. And if we can responsibly and successfully integrate it to the existing construct. Many times we can do that because some of the costs have already been offset through efficient and improved practices. We can absorb that into the existing school day without missing a beat. Sometimes it's not that complicated. Sometimes we just call a restaurant and say, hey, we have a bunch of kids that we want to run a culinary course, but there's no way I can do it without charging kids $285, and that's very expensive. So maybe your financial contribution can just be scholarships because I can't afford them. Or we can use that to offset some of my overhead costs so I can charge a lower price point for children. So sometimes it's just as simple as make a financial contribution, become the official partner of Cooking with Cantor, and I can charge the kids less money, so more kids can learn at a lesser price.
The bill is S 552, permits Board of Education to accept donations for purpose of providing property tax relief. And the assembly bill is A 3813. That, this past bill cycle. And then there was also in the same bill cycle, A 4310, and I don't have, and S 3141. I learned about all these bills in my niece. Establishing Public Education Innovative Fund, which provides corporate business tax and gross income tax credits to businesses that make qualified education donations. So the want is there, it just hasn't really gotten to that final step, but.
I have to, and we have to credit
Yes.
the administration. I mean, we were years ahead of all these things that are now coming to fruition, so.
And we have a question?
Yeah, I just have a quick question, I guess, about the extent of the donations I was curious about. So let's say you have a club like Model UN, and we go on a yearly conference to Hershey Park with other schools in the area, in the tri-state area. So for busing, we have to pay, we basically split the cost between that. If someone were to donate and could they specifically say, oh, could we donate so that those buses are free, that transportation to the conference and back is
So
free
what,
for the students?
so what I would do is I would find, let's just say, Vikram Enterprises wants to sponsor your Model UN stage, wait, the one out in Pennsylvania, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I would approach Vikram Enterprise, be like, hey, listen, you've got this unbelievable Model UN program. We sent, how many kids you guys take, like 150 kids out there, right?
No, we're like 50, we've been limiting it to
Because-
Oh, okay,
50
yeah.
bus.
Yeah, so down, good, wise choice, bus. We had 50 kids going out there and we go out there and generally do very well, right? Yeah, so it's one of our crown jewel programs at school. Vikram Enterprises happens to be an organization that is very proud of their civic duties and their humanities instruction. So they want to be associated with that success. So I go to Vikram Enterprise and say, hey, why don't you become the official partner of Model UN? Help us offset the cost of these buses so we don't have to hit these kids and their parents up. And then we'll make official t-shirts, we'll give you a banner, and then you're the official partner. Boom, the kids can now go on a bus and they don't fit. So those are kind of how those.
They have to let us know too. You have to let
Mhm.
the organizations that, Monroe Ed Foundation is always willing to give, I think they gave some, equipment to the robotics team in the middle school because they were missing some parts or something recently, and they donated there. So I mean, if you guys would let us know, I mean, it's something that we can, we can work on with, MEF or something here.
But that's a good example. So,
Yeah,
so
it
and that is a way that we've tried to use creativity, community outreach, and also the success and the shine of the successes of the district to create partnerships. It's no different than why people want to sponsor Oklahoma State.
So just to connect it to your initial question, and then we can go on.
We have to take the walk, yes.
So the Model UN example, we budget the staffing, we pay for the chaperones, we cover entry fees or whatever is appropriate. But the transportation to robotics worlds down in Texas or whatever, we again cover the chaperones and things, but the students get there on their own. They cover the travel costs for that. So the district covers the program, but when it gets to that level of, success or competition, it's the students that fund those competitions. That's an example of where the private partnership could support it. We're not supplanting, if we were
Yeah, thank
funding
you for
the bus there, we wouldn't raise funds to supplant our budgeted allowance for that transportation and then use it for something else. So it's about expanding or supporting something, that we already have in place, but we may not cover the full piece, right? We cover in-district, state championships and things like that, in-state stuff, but when it goes to out-of-state, national, or world stuff, we'll cover a chaperone to get you there, we'll get the equipment there, the robotics and stuff there, but the busing, transportation, flights, that's the parents getting the students there. So, and that's kind of the line between getting donations and supplanting something we already have in place versus covering things that we don't necessarily cover. And that's the line that the donors choose would have to toe
Right,
very,
yeah.
very, very, very closely.
Okay, we're gonna end this meeting now, because we're going to take a walkthrough with the committee and Mr. Morale and Dr. Lehman and our students at some of the different parts of the facilities that are what would you call it, a lot more expensive than others.
So I'm gonna, you don't have a lot of time, so what I'll do is,
Yeah.
I'll show you kind of where the most rapidly evolving areas are that are require regular governance and evolution. And as a result, we've had to rely on not just community expertise for support for curricular support, because these content areas are very complicated, but we also sometimes rely on